Hello, and welcome to The Shakedown, where we talk about the criminal justice system from the inside out. I am Ryan Forbes, a.k.a. Rainy, a.k.a. Rainforest. I am a writer, an ex-con, and comic book publisher, as well as a restorative justice activist. And I am here with Malone, who has informed me that he is a backyard prize fighter and orangutan enthusiast. Hello, Malone.
Hey, I'm Malone, and I'm also an ex-con. I'm an artist, writer, and as you've heard here, a backyard prize fighter. Grand champion backyard prize fighter, by the way.
Nice. Very nice.
And the orangutans, that's just a hobby.
Sounds about right. Well, today, each episode we usually have a question that we go over, and we have a couple questions. But first, I actually do have a question. I have a question, Rainey. What did you do this weekend? And there's the question. So this weekend, I actually spent a little over 24 hours in jail, in Texas. You know, our favorite place. So, yeah. So basically, as part of...
Why did you have to go to jail? Did you get arrested for something?
I did not get arrested.
What have you been doing, Rainey? What have you been up to?
As part of my...
Come clean. Tell the people what you're doing here.
As part of my sentence, I have to spend a day in jail every year as in remembrance of my victim, as the judge has said. And so I am supposed to, I have to, according to the terms, it has to be the same county which I was arrested in, go down to that jail, even though I do not live in that state anymore. I have to go down to that jail at a certain time, check myself in, and basically just sit there for 24 hours and then hope they let me out, which they really did not want to let me out this time around. So,
oh yeah, they're going to hold on to you?
Yeah, they wanted to.
You know what you did. You know what you did.
Yeah. So each year I have to, this is the second time I've had to do this since this is my, I've just finished my first year out, and this is the second time. The first year was, no fun, but honestly, last year was a lot easier than this one, in part because just trying to make travel arrangements was a crazy mess, because
so you're required to fly all the way down to Texas, or to at least procure your own travel from wherever you may be staying.
Right. So
to this county.
Right. So for those who don't know, I just got on parole last year, and so I'm still on parole, and as well, I am on probation, and I have this commitment that I have to do. So, and I'm on parole and probation in Colorado, not in Texas. So for me to go to Texas, I have to get permission from Colorado and from Colorado, from my parole officer and my probation officer, to come to Texas and come and do this. So I have to get the permission to come out to Texas and to go do that. And then so I have to do and there's not a whole lot of coordination between it. No one really cares if I fly or drive or whatever. I just need to get down there. Flying is the easiest because it's not, right now I don't have a driver's license, so I don't drive anywhere. And finding someone to drive me from Colorado to Plano or to McKinney, Texas, I can only imagine how much that Uber is going to cost me, or I can only imagine how many days that bus ride is going to take. Though I could get a lot of work done on that bus, I imagine. So
I don't think so. That sounds pretty uncomfortable to me.
that's true. Yeah. But yeah. And speaking of uncomfortable, so I get to, for those of you who don't know how jail works, when you go to jail, you basically have to go through booking, and then once you go through booking, then they send you up to a cell. So it's not like you immediately go to you're immediately issued a jumpsuit, and then you get up to a cell and you're in the jail. No, you get into the jail, and then there's a booking area, and you're usually in Collin County, everyone's still wearing their clothes that they normally wear, or whatever they were wearing when they got arrested, or whatever clothes, whatever scrubs the hospital let them have after they had to be cut out of whatever clothes, they were in when they got arrested or whatever. And you basically you sit in this holding area, and there's a sorry, hold on, Malone. So in booking, you don't just get issued your clothes and your jumpsuit. You have to sit down there in the holding area and wait until you can get up to the cells.
What is this holding area? Is this holding area thing like a common area? Are there many inmates being held there in that area, or is it like a single cell area, or what?
So in this holding area, each jail is going to be different. In Collin County, this holding area is actually basically 60 chairs that are divided into two groups of 30. One set of 30 is facing one wall, another set of 30 is facing another wall, and one set of 30 is for females and the other set of 30 is for males. And we are facing away from each other. And basically, that's taking up half the room. The other half of the room is a desk where there's a bunch of officers running around. They're just running around from spot to spot, and they're shuffling around paperwork and everything. And if they look over and they see one of the guys checking out one of the females across the room, then they'll start yelling and start saying how you're holding up their paperwork, and that if you want to get booked and get up to the cells, which I will explain why you want to get up to the cells, then you need to act right, you need to be well behaved, and you need to not bother the officers, which they will repeat several times. So, basically, the reason you want to get up to the cells, the reason you want to get up there is because that's all there is. There's chairs, and that's it. And you can't.
There's no toilet?
There's a bathroom. Okay, there is a bathroom in there, and there's a water fountain. Okay, and that you can have access to. You have fresh, I'm sure, COVID-free access to. I say that totally sarcastically. There was one. So I was I have a year. It's called a yearly commitment, is what this is called. A lot of people.
Yearly commitment.
Yes, a lot of people who do this, they are called weekenders because they have weekend commitments. They have to come in for 72 hours on the weekend to do their jail time. So they are supposed to work during the week and then come into jail on the weekends. And I just so happened to be coming in on a Friday night when the weekenders start their weekend trip, at the jail. So I kind of got lumped in with them. Yeah. So basically you come in and since if you're, for us, we don't have enough time to go anywhere. So they're not going to book us into the cells because it's going to take too long. It usually takes about 24 hours before you get booked into a cell anyway. For most people, I'm watching people in this process, and it takes between 12 and 24 hours to get moved from the holding area to the cells. And the reason you want to get up into the cells,
people sit in those chairs for 24 hours straight.
People sit in those chairs for 72 hours straight. The weekenders don't go upstairs. And even
so y'all sit in the holding area for the whole entire time you're there?
Yeah, we sit in the holding area for the entire time. Yeah, that's why you want to go up to the cells, is so you can have a bed. But weekenders and commitments like me, we don't go upstairs. We don't go to the cells. We just sit in the chairs the entire time. Now, eventually at night, during the night shift, during the night from the 5:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m., you are allowed to lie in they open up 2 holding cells, which is basically these 2, I don't know. I can't say how big they are. They're probably about like 10 by 20s or something like that. They're not very big. Some units, they would be like single man cells pretty much. But they've got concrete benches built into the side of the walls on each side. So you can lie on the concrete bench or on the floor. Now, these holding cells are also where they feed everybody. So they move everyone into the cells. So these holding cells are pretty disgusting most of the time. And there's usually...
Sounds pretty disgusting.
Yeah, like I was... during one of the meals, I kind of was like pacing around because I'd been sitting for 20 hours at that point, and I was pacing around the holding cell, and my feet were like squeaking because what was happening is guys were holding up they weren't using trays, they were using foam packaging like you would get from like a fast food restaurant or something, and they were using foam packaging to package their meals. And guys were holding them sideways, so any liquid that was inside that was dumping all over the floor. And
oh yeah, that sounds good.
It was great. It was all over the floor. This floor that guys had just been sleeping on. And yeah, it was. And like my feet were like squeaking because it was all this sticky stuff was all over the floor. So yeah. Yeah. So that's where you're spending your 24 hours. And like I said, you're in the holding cell for meals. You can go in there to lie down at night. You cannot lie down during the day. So you're in that chair pretty much the entire day. If you stand up to stretch or whatever, unless you're going to the bathroom, you can get in trouble or whatever. They're going to yell at you. The officers at the bench are going to yell at you. And the perfect example is what I saw at the beginning of the night. There were 2 women who were clearly coming down from something, some substance, and they were loud and they were upset. And to their credit, the officers were not listening to them. They had, and in part. And I can say in part because they were being loud and upset and were clearly coming down from something, but that was their point, is the officers weren't listening to them. And so what one officer did was he started shouting, and he basically said, look, I'm going to, he started his statement with, this is what you're going to do, which that was that just sent an immediate message to the women right there. So those 2 women who he knew were already acting out, they immediately responded and just said, we're not, you're not the boss of us. We don't have to do anything. And he's like, hey, if you talk up again, I'm going to lock all of you up. And of course, they talk up again. It took about 2 seconds and they started talking up again. And so they rounded up all of the women and took them to another, like a holding cell way down the hall, and took them there. Well, to get processed, you have to go through health and stuff like that, and they'll have questions for you. They have fingerprints, and they'll call the women out one by one.
Well, wasn't that a superior situation than sitting in those chairs in that holding area? Isn't that what you said everybody was trying to get put in the cells?
They wanted to go into the cells. The holding area isn't the cell. Cell is you get either your own cell or you get a cell with a cellie. Like with your own bunk, you have your own bunk that you can sleep in. That you can go.
Didn't you just say those girls got locked up in cells?
No, they got locked up in a separate holding area. I don't even know. I've never been in this holding area that they got locked up in. I've never even seen it.
Oh, there's more than one holding area.
Yeah. So I didn't
You're going to the other holding area that's even where the chairs are even more uncomfortable.
Yeah, this was the punishment holding area. So it was the holding area.
These chairs don't have backs.
Right.
There's just stools you have to sit on now. They can get worse from there.
Right. So they sent them in there, and then they're still calling them out one by one. And as they're calling them out one by one, the women who get called out go sit down back into the holding area with us because they want to sit in the chairs and watch TV because at least they have a TV.
Oh, there's a TV in this holding area.
Yeah, the TV that we're in, that's what we're facing. We're all facing each group is like facing different sets of TVs. So there's a small TV where we can actually watch TV, and then there's a big TV that has prison rules on it, which is actually pretty. That one I'll get into in a little bit, but
yeah, that sounds kind of 1984 there.
Yeah. Well, you can't. The best part is you can't even follow the prison rules yet because you're not. The prison rules are for people who are in the cell blocks, and we're not in the cell blocks yet. So
they don't even apply to you.
Right. So we go to so these women, some of the women who mouthed off, they're already sitting back in the chairs. But at one point, an officer goes and grabs the women like 4 hours later and pulls them and brings the rest back in. I didn't even realize that they were still gone. I thought they had all been brought back because I saw them watching the TV. And the two women
saw them watching TV.
Yeah, they're like I said, some of them had been trickling back in. So I figured the ones that were coming back were already back. And then I realized, no, they've been sitting in that holding area for 4 hours.
Wow.
And the women who caused it, they're watching the TV already. They've been watching TV. So that punishment, that's basically what you had to deal with that at the jail. Like that's basically what it is to have a commitment, is sitting there and doing that. And honestly, I didn't for me, I'm happy to not go to the cells, because to go to the cells, to get up there, you have to strip down, shower, get issued the clothes, check in your old clothes, so basically everything gets taken away from you. You have to shower in the gross showers there, and then put on. When I was there, you got issued a jumper, and that was it. So no boxers. You had to purchase boxers, and so you're wearing a jumper that's been worn by however many people before you, and it's there's nothing in between you and that jumper.
And there's nothing in between you and that jumper, huh?
And also, for those of you who've never worn a jumper before, and I explained this to some of the women were joking. They're like, man, I was really looking forward to getting one of those jumpers. I was like, those jumpers are really hard to use when you have to sit on a toilet. Like, they are not designed for that. I mean, honestly, even if the jumper's buttons are in the wrong spot, it's even any sort of toilet use is difficult. But yeah, jumpers are not designed for going to the bathroom, and they get gross real quick.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds pretty gross.
Yeah.
Jails are generally gross, or are pretty much gross in general. I don't know about. Well, I don't know. I don't have a lot of jail experience. I mean, I did stay in one county jail in the early '90s for 2 years almost before I went to prison, and that jail was gross as all get out. But that jail doesn't even exist anymore. That jail was on its way out whenever I was in there. They were already building a new jail, but I mean, I'm sure that in some wealthy counties in this country, they have very nice jails that are clean and so forth. But in Texas, for the most part, jails are pretty horrible. They're filled with inmates that aren't going to be there for very long. And that situation lends itself to no one caring about the situation, like about the conditions of the jail, because inmate labor, of course, is how jails get cleaned and how the clothes get cleaned and how the food gets cooked. And in prison, you have people that are making their lives in prison, and so there's a tendency to, at least some extent, the prison janitors and the prison laundry and the prison cooks put some degree of effort and care into the job that they have, because I mean, it improves the overall conditions of where they're living. No one wants to live for, in that situation like you're describing, where there's food on the floor and all that for any extended period of time. But if you have the attitude, well, I'm going to be out of here in just a few hours anyways, well, then no one will care, and so that just compounds the nastiness of places like that.
Right. Yeah, that's in a prison, you're taking care of where you live. In a jail, you're really trying to get something out of it. Like you're trying, the people who work there, they're trying to like get extra portions, get extra food for themselves. They're not really trying to better the food overall for everybody involved. In part because it's not going to happen. They're for whatever reason, they've got a certain budget or whatever. They're not trying to cook good big meals. They're just trying to put out whatever they can. The other thing is that the workers there they're usually working either because they're just trying to take care of the time that they have, or because it earns them some favor. Like it looks good for when they go up in front of the judge next time, saying, "Hey, I worked the whole time and I did this."
Oh, so they're not working. The inmates that are working in there aren't like trustee status guys or somebody that's already had that has got a jail sentence, like a misdemeanor jail sentence.
They might. Some of them. A lot of them might be. They might be ones that have trustee sentence. You might be right. They might already have, but even the ones that already have sentences, like when I was coming up for my case, there was a guy who had a sentence, and basically he could have gotten a month off of his basically it was up to the judge when his sentence ended. So he was going up in front of the judge. He's saying, "Hey, look, I've been to church, and I've been going to church all the time, and I really think I can make parole." And he's like, the judge came right back to him and said, "You haven't been doing anything. You haven't worked. You may have gone to church. I don't know. I can't tell if you have or not." And that was something we talked about before, is like, no one's really recording any of that. It's like you haven't shown me that you're actually doing anything. So because he couldn't prove that he went to church, he didn't care about that. It was right.
All he cared about was whether he was working or not.
Right. It was whether he was actually doing it, like something he could see. So if he did, he could get 30 days off of his jail sentence. and that's why he was going up in front of the judge. Because he had a short one anyway. So
right.
it's not. Yeah. For us, for prison sentence, 30 days is not a huge amount off of our sentence, but for jail sentence, can be a huge chunk of time off of a sentence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yes.
When you were sentenced not only to a prison sentence, you were also sentenced to a to probation and jail. To probation and prison. And so are you starting your probation now that as you made parole and got out, or did your probation start along with your prison sentence? Have you been on probation the whole entire time that you've been in prison?
It sounds like the probation started when I got out. So
really, so you just now started your probation,
right?
Well, you haven't completed your prison sentence yet, though. So why would your probation start now?
As
parole is still
right. It's
under
a condition upon my release. That was a thing that I was looking at. That's why this thing is they're listed as conditions upon my release. Is how they're listed.
Okay.
It's weird.
All right.
Yeah.
So your 10-year probationary period just started 2 years ago, right?
A year ago.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Just over a year, because it was March when I got out last year.
Okay. All right. March of last year is when you got out?
March 1st.
Are you sure?
Positive. How you think I would forget that?
March of 2021?
March 2021.
Wow, that does not seem right.
Why does that not seem right?
How did you? I don't know. I just felt like you got out of prison. I felt like you got out of prison like 6 months before I did, or something. But apparently, we got out in very close proximity to one another, because I got out on April 21st.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
2021.
I think, and that's the funny part. You made parole I think 6 months later, but you got out. My parole got delayed so many times that we got out about the same time.
Yeah. Oh, that is interesting. All right. So now you have 9 more years of probation to do, which is 9 more trips to jail. So is this part of your probation, or is this just something tacked onto your sentence?
This is supposed to be part of my probation. It's supposed to be part of that probation, and it's listed as a condition upon release. But I'm honestly, and if anyone listening is a lawyer in Texas and can help me out, I'm trying to figure it out, because it's really weird. No one really understands it, and I'm trying to get clarification on it. One of the big reasons is because of what happened to me at the end of the trip. The big part of it was that at the end of the trip, they tried to keep me longer. And this is scary for a bunch of reasons. Not only does it suck to stay in any longer than you have to, but the other part is that like I said, I don't live in Texas. My parole and probation are in Colorado, so I'm responsible to Colorado. So if I'm stuck in jail in Texas, if they decide to just keep me there longer and I miss my flight back to Colorado, that's on me. That's not on Texas. That's on me. But them messing around with if an officer decides to, or if the officers decide they don't want to let me go, then it's really hard to figure that out. And it's already hard enough to plan this trip, because there's only certain flights I can catch when trying to get this day in, and also trying to figure out.
You have to catch a flight first and foremost, which is expensive and onerous, of course. You have to if you are working, you have to take a day off of work or take time off of work to make this happen. You have to make arrangements, I'm assuming, with the people you're staying around to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of at your apartment or room.
Right.
And so, how many days does this take altogether for you? What does a round trip normally consist of?
The round trip is at least 3 days normally, just so I can. One is to get is trying to get there on time, and is trying to so the 24 hours. So it's that's 2 days right there, because I have to get there on one day, and I'm going to leave the net. If at earliest, I'm going to leave the next. The first time I did this, I did catch a flight after after getting out. I was able to get there and just barely make the flight. This time, if that were, I wouldn't have made the flight. I was glad I didn't book a flight that night, because I wouldn't have made it, because they were holding me. And
so you had to book a flight after you got out.
Well, the good news is I booked a flight the next morning, mainly because I was worried of exactly something like this happening. That it was just
turning into a pretty expensive trip.
Right. I had to book 2 hotels.
You have to make arrangements. Oh, you had to stay in. So I was going to ask that. That's my next question. You had to make arrangements to stay somewhere in Texas too, right?
Right. So I'm staying in somewhere the night before. I'm staying somewhere the night after. Fortunately, my friends and family are there to come and take me around, but they're paying, my uncle came in from Houston to drive me around. So, I mean, he's making a giant trek himself. And I mean, one nice thing is a big part of the reason I came in so early was to try and, see my family up there and see some friends up there before going in. But I definitely would not have done it at this time of year, and especially since it's Passover and Jews aren't supposed to be flying around on planes or traveling anywhere really. But
so this was also you had to violate your religion. So this was also a violation of your religious freedoms, forcing you to do this. Did you bring this up to them at all? Was this ever mentioned to them that this is going on Passover?
I did. I brought this up before. This is one of the first things I brought up, and that's why I even looked at the papers, because I told them, I said, this is on, you understand this is on Passover. And it's and I told them, you wouldn't have to change it that bit. It's right at the end. So if you changed it to 5:30 a.m. the next day, it wouldn't be on Passover anymore. But they said they couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it, huh?
Yeah, couldn't do it.
Can't be altered.
Cannot. Says that's what the judge wrote, that's another thing. The judge was very clear about the sentence. He said April 22nd on the every year. But then there's this whole thing about 5:30 p.m. That judge did not say anything about any 5:30 p.m. I can't imagine the judge saying anything about any 5:30 p.m. They were very adamant about 5:30 p.m. So,
wow.
They said I can't change it. Just what the judge said. So all of this goes in there, goes in with that. So if anyone knows any lawyers that could maybe tell me how this works or what's going on with that, or how I can, at the very least, get it transferred to Colorado, which would be amazing. That on its own would be so much better. Just not have to do it. Just if it was up in Boulder County as opposed to Collin County. Yeah, that's 24 hours.
That is the craziest thing about this whole thing is makes this. I mean, it just makes it so beyond the pale of anything I can imagine. You're not wealthy, are you, Rainforest?
No. This is For those of you who
So
don't know,
for you to take the amount of money,
right?
you don't happen to own your own radio station or anything, do you?
That'd be great. No, but this, I'm here at Longmont Public Media recording this podcast and doing this and selling comics. And not because I own a comic book company, not because I'm Jim Lee in disguise, running DC or some executive at Disney who runs Marvel. I am, just some guy working with my buddy here to self-publish comics. So no, I don't have a whole lot of money to go run around and do this, to make sudden special trips to Collin County, Texas.
So what would happen if you just didn't have the money to make it down here to Texas?
Probably count as violation, and violation would, they could. Then I'd have to deal with court in Collin County, and if I miss court, there'd be a warrant, and then probably.
So there'd be a warrant issued for your arrest if you just didn't have the money to do this.
Right.
That sounds completely reasonable and fair, in my opinion. I think that.
Yeah.
If you don't have the money what Texas really ought to do, if in my opinion, is to start filing the paperwork to own all of the oxygen and air that is around us, and then charge us money to breathe. And if we don't happen to have the money to breathe, well then, we're still breathing their air, well then they could issue a warrant and have us put in jail, or put us at least into some kind of oxygen-free tank where we can just, pass away from lack of having the money to.
There's indigent oxygen.
Your freedom your freedom being dependent upon the amount of money you have. There's something about that that is extremely unsettling.
But don't worry, Governor Abbott has said many times that there is no debtors' prisons in Texas. I'm sure he has somewhere. I'm sure he said that at some point in time, that there's no debtors' prisons. Governor Abbott, the lovely person who said, we're not going to release anyone from prison during COVID. My best buddy.
Yeah.
The Shakedown was produced at Longmont Public Media. And our theme song, Shakedown, was brought to you by Envato Elements. If you want any Shakedown merchandise, or you want to support the show, you can go to waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com.